The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV. Hot topics, food, fun, entertainment, and serious business. Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese.
All right, folks, today's show is going to the dogs in a good way. I've got two very special guests today who've got some really timely information for all you dog lovers out there. I figured I'd give you a break from the lizards and snakes that I usually have on the show, but try to escape. Today, though, some really, really important information for pet owners, dog owners out there. We're going to talk about grooming, which is really, really important all year, but in the summertime, it could be issues for a lot of people. And then, so this is our pet grooming expert, and then later on in the show I'm going to be talking to a veterinarian who has her own, you have a radio show, right? And she's like well known here in the community. She's also going to talk about summer care for your pets, and I'm going to share a personal story which I should be embarrassed to share, but I'm going to share it anyway because I think it's really it speaks to what a lot of assumptions people make about what their dogs need when it comes to heat. So I'm going to share with you. Stick around for that. But right now we're going to talk to Lamar Jackson, the owner of Calling All Pets, and it's at Jones right off the US 95. You got to pass the McDonald's to get there, but it's right there. So yeah, thank you for joining us today on the show. And how I found you too was like kind of interesting because I was looking for a new groomer. I like to kind of go to different groomers and find different styles. You are also, I didn't know until I walked into the store, something of like an icon here because you are the only African-American groomer, not just in Southern Nevada, that we know of.
I think I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing too.
Owner anyway.
Owner, right. Correct. Right. Let's talk a little bit about how you got started because I'm always curious about how people got into or in the line of work that they are. Did you have like did you know when you were a little kid, one day I want to be a dog groomer, an animal groomer?
Not really, but I always loved animals.
Right.
My mom always encouraged me, you should be a veterinarian or something like that, a zoologist. And, one day I decided, let me go into this pet shop right here and see they're hiring. And I went in, they actually was doing grooming, and the lady was hiring. She said, you know what, you should fill out an application in our grooming department because we're hiring in that department. We can train you hands-on. And I said, you know what, I'll give it a try. And she was like, when you want to start? I said, I'm open. She was like, you want to start today? And I'm like,
wow. Sure,
why not?
Wow.
She gave me a uniform, and she started me off bathing. And she said, you sure you haven't did this before? And I'm like, nah, besides my dog's at home. And she's like, you're really good at it. So it just started there, and I just haven't looked back.
Wow, wow. Isn't it fun? I so admire and envy people who get to spend their day with animals. I mean, that's part of what they do for a living. So you're with dogs and cats all day.
Dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs.
People bring their guinea pigs in to be groomed?
Yeah.
Get out.
Get
What do you do for okay.
Well, I have a set of guinea pigs. I actually do a haircut on one, the long hair one, and I just do bathing on the short hair one. So I just do the nails and the trimming on the long hair one.
Wow, wow.
The rabbits, it's this one that come in. I want to say it's a mix between two, but like this part of it is like a lion's mane, the other part is short. So I do a lot of scissor work on that one, make it look more like a lion and more proportionate. Right. I do the nails as well. Wow,
that's fun. Tell me, like, what one of your favorite stories involving a pet that's not going to make the owner, kind of get mad or anything, but just it was just unique.
Well, I would say I was going out on my break and I seen this dog racing around the parking lot. So I'm figuring someone either lost their dog or was running from someone. And it hid under the car. So I went and called it out and was able to get the dog. And there was no one dog. So the dog was really, really matted. And took it in. I made some calls around, and no one claimed it.
No collar vet,
no,
right?
So the second day, I ended up just grooming it. I said, I'm going to see if someone can find this dog if I groom it. And I was actually able to not have to shave the dog. And it came out looking like a Bichon to me, but it was a mixed breed. And, I found it a home.
Wow. Wow, that's really cool. That really is cool. I think that there is a, and I'm speaking for myself, but if you guys agree, go ahead and send me an email, rickycheeselasvegas@gmail.com. I just find that there's a different level of dog owner who takes their dog to be groomed, because I'll admit it, I spend more money on my dog's grooming than I do on my own. It's just amazing, yeah. Because I want them to look good. It's a thing of pride, just like parents take their kids to get haircuts, that type of thing. Yeah, yeah. So the people who are coming to you, obviously they love their animals. Otherwise, they wouldn't come and spend the money.
True. True. Animals are like kids, and you live with them, so it's good to keep their hygiene up. I mean, it's just like us. When we're not groomed, we feel down. Animals are like the same too. So, after they get groomed, they're happy, they're more spunky, they're more alive. So, I mean, it's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the range when it comes to grooming. What are the services you provide?
We provide all over haircuts, ear cleaning, nail trimming, brush out anal glands, sanitary pads, dematting services, furminating services, medicated baths.
Right. Do you find that people don't want to admit, and I will admit, this last time when I brought Akira to you, I had already gone past the time frame for getting her groomed. It had been a little while, and she looked good on the surface until you got to her back, and that's when it was like the humps of hair, and she's so dense. Her skin, her undercoat is so dense, and I really appreciated you because I tried. I had my slicker brush out. I had my furminator out. I got through one leg, and the hump of hair that just came off, and that's why I called you. I was like, I can't.
It's a lot of work.
I can't handle the truth. I'm bringing her in. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, I mean, certain breeds, like, certain German Shepherds, Akitas, Chows, some even cats.
Really?
To be honest, they have this undercoat, and I do a 3-phase brush to get it all out. It's easier when they're clean.
Brush, right.
It's easier to get when they're clean.
Right.
But we brush them out before the bath, during the bath, blow them out, and do another brushing after they're dry. That's the only way you can really get majority of it out. Right. Where it's more manageable.
I think there's a misconception, at least it's been my experience. I always assumed until I got Akitas that long-haired dogs, or especially double-coated dogs, shed more. Well, I have been more covered with hair by some short breed dogs. It just depends on the breed itself. Some of the littler dogs or the shorter, you look at their bodies and it looks like they've got short hair. Well, they do have short hair, but man, they can blow it out.
Yeah, rat terriers, chihuahuas, labs, they shed all year round. And I tell people, I can get out the bulk, but I can't stop your dog from growing. Right. You just have to brush your dog every day. You have less around the house, but it helps.
Right. One of the canine officers I know at Metro, he told me that one of the things that he does, and one of my brothers did that too with my first Akita, he says he takes and puts him in the back seat, puts down all the windows, and just drives on US 95, trying to blow as much as possible.
That'll work. Just don't get in your eye.
Right.
That'll work.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to still have it swirl. I tried that. You're still going to have hair swirling around. It's amazing to me. And I do this all the time when I'm behind somebody in line. You can always tell. I don't care how much you use that lint roller. There is that 1 or 2 little follicles there, and I'll say, so what do you have, a dog or a cat? And they're like, oh. It's like, no, I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that another animal owner can see that, but most people wouldn't even look at that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So what is the number one thing that you would recommend as we're in the summer months, and if not only breed specific, but things people need to keep an eye on when it comes to grooming their animals?
Well, they have dew claws. Keep an eye on those dew claws. They curl, they grow fast, they're not very that noticeable, especially on longer-haired dogs. In the summertime out here in Vegas, if your dog have hair in his pads, sometimes it's not good to shave it away if you walk your dog a lot. It protects the pads. And, thoroughly rub your dog and see if your dog is starting to accumulate undercoat. Because sometimes you won't see it on the top surface, but you'll see it in the middle on the way down.
Right.
And you may not recognize that, your dog is getting mad. It's time to bring it in and get groomed thoroughly.
Right. Apollo and Akira have 2 very different fur types. You know, you've met Akira. She's like a cotton ball, and you can see the dander coming up. But with Apollo, you don't, because his overcoat is just so kind of slick. And it's not till you touch him and you can see the little white hairs coming out. So it really does get down to how much time do you actually spend, and that's, I think, a real good reason and a good recommendation in terms of, probably not every day, because I don't do it every day, but occasionally to take that time, because you might think that one dog is not shedding, but they are shedding. As they're walking through the house, they're just dropping those follicles.
Right.
Yeah.
And that usually is the undercoat, too.
Right. So I'm going to share this story. I was talking with him and Dr. White, Debbie White, before the show. This is one of my early Akita stories, my very first Akita, because I didn't know any better. And this is a reason why you should meet groomers. And before you have your dog groomed, ask them some detailed questions, because I didn't. I had a friend who was not into dogs, and Tundra was my first dog, and he was shedding like humps. I thought he was dying, of course, that he had cancer and he had mange, and he was like, you know, it's like the cheeses, we go from 0 to 10. This means death, whatever this is. And so I took him to my vet at the time, Dr. Michael Brinkman, who, darn it, has now become a specialist, so he doesn't do general stuff. And he said, well, Rikki, did anybody explain to you that this is what happens in the summertime? Well, no. Okay, so he explained that, you know, they shed their coats, and some of them shed more than others, and Tundra was one of the, like, prolific, like this was like his whole life mission, was to just hump out everywhere. So I said, okay, thank you. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just, you know, get a really, really good grooming, because growing up, our dogs, I don't think Mama ever had our dogs groomed at all. We also had short-haired dogs. So this friend says, you should have him shaved. I thought, well, that sounds like a good idea. You know, get rid of all the hair at one stop. Took it to the groomer, and the groomer, when I said what I wanted, she said, are you sure you want to do that? I said, yes, I want to do that. So she did it. It was horrible. I didn't know, no one explained to me that the overcoat is what holds that dander down to some extent. So I went from having a somewhat serious problem to having a horrible problem. Every time baby breathed, it was just like watching follicles fly through the air. But do you find that, do you have that? People come in and they say, I want you to shave and take it all off.
Yes, a lot, especially
and
in the summer times.
What are the downsides of that?
Depends on the breed. Like chows, any shepherd breeds, labs, chihuahuas, just dogs that are not bred for haircut, styling, shouldn't be shaved. But you can kind of get away with it as well too. If they're strictly indoors and you'll take them out a lot, you can get away with it. But the offset is you won't have the hair everywhere, but you have dander everywhere. So it's give or take.
Right.
You know?
Trust me, guys, the dander is so much worse. Yeah, right. I would never have thought people would have their chihuahuas shaved. I mean, that's the long-haired chihuahuas.
They shed a lot.
Yeah. So they think that's going to cut down on it.
It does. Because, I mean, the hair goes from the shedding phase to the growing phase, of course, because you can cut it, but you have the dander.
Right.
You know, so you have drier skin. The skin is more exposed to the, try to say, the elements. So it gets a give or take.
And when you have dogs that have a lot of fur, or even like chihuahuas, like you're looking at them, you don't think that they have a lot of fur. When you expose that skin, if you're going to take them out, now that skin, that's a problem, is being exposed to sun that they might not normally get.
The radiation from the sun is not good for the hair follicles, and they're not used to be exposed like that, so it can stun the growth of the hair, and it may not grow back all at once. It may grow back patchy, as if you think your dog having thyroid problems or chemo on a chemo treatment. That's kind of how it grows back. Definitely it's not normal, but if you're going to take them out, do it when the sun comes down.
Right. Yeah.
That eliminates that problem.
I used to put down, when I first really got into dogs, I would see the little dogs with their sweaters on and that thing. I just thought, that is so ridiculous. But if you have a dog, especially if you shave the dog, or a dog that is heat or cold sensitive, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. The Chihuahuas, and I would say, what's that breed? Powerpuff. Them type of animals,
Right. It's amazing. So now, this is my other pet peeve. We're going to have some photos of this one, because I just always assumed that my baby's nails weren't growing fast, but they're covered with fur, and I didn't realize that I wasn't really seeing the true length. But my friends who have pits won't get their nails cut, so they've got these wicked long nails. Now, not only is that I think if you've got dogs that have long nails, not only is that kind of dangerous for anybody if the dog is jumping or that type of thing, that's scratching, but from a health standpoint, that's also dangerous. It could cause some real problems for the dog.
For the dog, break it at the base, snatch the whole nail out. It's not good.
Right, right. And so many, at least I'm not sure what you guys charge, but there are many groomers here in town. They do $5 nail trims. So it's not like you're taking your dog in for a $60 or $80 or $90 thing. You can find a vet pretty much anywhere here in this valley who will do those nail trims at least somewhat inexpensively, so you can avoid long-term health problems.
True. True.
Yeah. But what should you ask for when it comes to a nail trim?
Does they grind? You know, because
Now, what is the grinding?
The grinding is when you follow the nails down smoothly, so they won't be rugged after you cut them. That's the whole reason why you get them cut, to bring the nail back some, so the cuticle won't grow with the nail long, and then so they stop scratching and getting snagged on things. So
Right.
when you follow them, they're short, they're smooth. You have a happy pup, happy pet owner.
And happy friends who visit you aren't saying, stay down, go, quiet, because they're scratching. A groomer that I know said to me, in fact, there's a reason why I took one of my Akitas in to see the vet, that you folks really are the front line sometimes when it comes to discovering, especially if you've got a dog with heavy fur, that there might be a potential problem that the owner doesn't see because they're not grooming their dog themselves.
Well, me and a lot of my staff, I mean, we try to explain what we found as far as, you know, skin condition, wounds, scratches, deformities, lumps. While we're grooming the dog,
Right.
we touch like every part of the dog's body,
Right.
which, you know, most pet parents don't.
Right.
And we try to let them know, hey, have you seen this, or were you aware of this, or, you know, you might want to take your dog to the vet because this don't look normal. You might want to address this.
Right.
You know, it's a scab under there, and I took a picture before and after, and this is what it looked like. It's not infected, but, you know, you might need some antibiotics for it. So
Right.
we kind of educate them on what could or could not happen.
Yeah, because even if you have a dog who's like a couch potato and you're holding them a while, I think that in fact it was a scare that I had with this groomer, how this all came up. He said you might want to take Akira to the vet because she's just really touchy on her hind, one of her hind legs. So of course, like I said, she had cancer and she was dying. So it's like we had to make an emergency run because my baby was being gone.
Right.
And so my vet, after $150 later, came out and said, you know, I think Akira has gas and she's just cranky. Like, well, can I have my $150 back because she's not dying? So I was like, no, that's the fee for all that. But she said that's what it was. And just every so often, now I know that if she doesn't want to be touched in certain parts of her body, it's because she's uncomfortable in some way.
Right,
it doesn't
right.
necessarily mean that she's sick, you know.
Correct.
But it took that, and then now I actually massage my dogs. While we're playing, I try to feel every major part of their body and look for those things that I never would have thought of before, you know? Yeah, I was always thinking that if there was going to be a problem, it would be really obvious. But depending on your dog and depending on their fur, you might not see the beginnings of a
Depending
problem.
on a pet parent.
Right.
You can't just rub your dog on the head and think, oh, okay. You have to touch your dog.
Right.
Rub your dog. Look in the pads. Look in the toes. You know,
Yeah.
rub the stomach. You know, look at the skin color. Look at the ear flap.
And look inside their ears as
Correct.
much as you can, because little bugs, especially mine, they can come and go as they please. They have their own
Right.
door.
Right.
So I'm just amazed how they find that one little patch of dirt. Because I thought I'd pretty much covered everything. No, they can find just one little patch or create one for themselves and then dig in, and they don't look, because of the way their fur is, they don't ever look dirty. So I might go a couple of days before I realize that,
Right.
because I can see the little dirt pads as
Right.
they've walked through the house. Yeah, so it really is important to take a look at your dogs. When you have the dogs, when they're coming in, what's the first thing that you look at before you start to groom?
I go touch them. You know, I introduce myself to the pet parent, but I introduce myself to the client, which is the dog, intimate.
Right.
You know, I rub the dog, call the dog name, I touch the head, neck, body, to see, you know, what I'm dealing with. 'Cause,
Right.
you know, looks can be deceiving.
Right.
And I don't want to promise somebody something that if I get them wet, I can't do it.
Right.
So
Right.
I really have hands-on on top of looking as well.
What are the things that people should look for when they're deciding to take their dog to be professionally groomed? What are the questions they need to ask?
Well, first of all, they need to let us know, you know, what their dog don't like if they're aware. Like, My dog don't like the nails done, feet touched. My dog, you know, don't like men or women, or scared of the dryer, or scared of the vacuum at home, because it gives us an idea of how to approach the dog so we can do our job, you know, swiftly, smoothly. They should ask, you know, do you guys have cage dryers? What kind of nooses you guys use? What vet do you guys use in case of emergency? Things of that nature.
Right, right. The training that they're doing at home, you have to know about, because then you'll have, or just like Akira with the touchiness.
Right.
Because he had seen Akira for quite a few times, he knew that this was unusual because she had never flinched before. That's what made me, alarmed me as well.
Right.
So I was grateful that he took that, you know, because he knew my dog, because he'd been dealing with her. And it was just like, I was just really grateful that at least it raised my concern, but then it also made me aware of what you're talking about, the need to touch her all over, not just, like you said, I was doing that, petting her on the head, petting her on her butt, and thinking that we were all good. It's like,
Yeah, you gotta really touch your dog, because a lot of people, they come in, they say, oh, well, she don't bite at home. You touch your dog feet? Oh, I never touch my dog feet. It's like, well, how can you say that, you know? You touching your dog at home, us grooming it, you can't really compare that.
Right.
You know, first of all, the dog's in an environment he's never been in if it's his first time.
right?
And it's dealing with a person they meeting for the first time. And it's,
Right.
you know, dogs are barking, dogs are, you know, like a kennel.
Right.
You know, and in a whole different environment. So, you know, we deal with a lot when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So, you need to know as much information as possible.
Right. I didn't realize, too, how critical it is, if you have a puppy, to start them off early, being touched all over. So that way, when you do take them to the groomer, this is not unusual. You know, you know, they're not being dragged into this. Well, it's still going to be an unusual environment for the first time,
The earlier
but they're
the
used to
better,
being
though.
touched. Yeah.
The earlier the better.
Yeah.
Mainly they need to touch, you know, around the ears, the feet, the legs, between the toes and the pads, the rear end, you know, because when we have to do our job, clean those areas or remove hair from those areas, it's their first time. Something vibrating, cold, you know, they going, what is that? You know?
Who are you? Right.
You know, most animals on the defense, you know, want to bite.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
they're familiar with it, you know, it's smooth. It's not like punishment. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to my second owner.
Right.
You know, so and some dogs are like that. They happy to come to groomers, and some dogs are like, eh. So
Right.
it all depends on how early they start.
You, along with vets, you guys have to deal with not just the dog, but the owners. I mean, I know the first time I took my dogs to get groomed, I'm always on edge. I'm kind of scared. I'm like, how are they going to be treated? Is this person going to, you know, love my dog? But then again, I'm also trying to figure out on the other side, are they going to behave? And I have this little conversation in the car. Now, don't embarrass mommy. Do not bite the groomer, whatever you do. And they're like, okay. It's like, no, really. I don't want to have to come pick you up later on. And they say, they were just buck wild back there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're like kids, though, with daycare.
Yeah.
You know, so when you're looking for a groomer, you know, I say, you know, look for a place that's wide open when they're doing their grooming, when you can see they're not
Right.
behind a door.
Right.
So you can see, you know, what's going on, how each person is handling the animal, how they're dealing with difficult animals as
Right.
well, because that plays a part too. If
Yeah.
you're on edge, your dog's going to be on edge when
Right.
you're trying to groom them. So,
Right.
but pet parents, you know, be calm, don't be nervous, you know, fill out your paperwork, tell the groomer everything they need to know, and leave.
Right.
Let us do our job.
Right, right.
Call
then-
and check.
Yeah, your shop is, when you walk in the door, your stations are right there. So I love to, I always love, you know, come geeky like that. I'll go to a groomer even if I don't have a dog, just to watch how, I do my reconnaissance ahead of time, just to watch how they're treating the dogs. Even if it's a fearful dog, how are they being treated? Is the groomer acknowledging that and, you know, working with
They
the
better if
dogs?
they don't want to
Yeah.
get bit.
right, right. What do you love most about grooming?
This may sound weird, but I did a lot of, you know, trouble needs dog rescues, abused dogs, and I like the fact of turning them around from being that dog that people, oh, take it put it to sleep, and I'm changing that dog to, you know, a happy dog that now it's okay with grooming. It's
Right.
not bitey anymore.
Right.
You know, it's more approachable and friendly towards people. So, I mean, I like to rehabilitate them back to, you know, being a good dog.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Well, and just like we as you know, people love to get a massage, dogs like to be touched as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very comforting. It's very soothing.
That's what we do during our luxury bath massage. Scrub, and they love it. So,
yeah.
I mean, if they do come in a little sketchy, I mean, if the water don't do the bath, they're your dog after they lick you in the face, they're happy. Love it.
It's rewarding, yeah. So, folks, to find you, like I said, he's Calling All Paws. You can't miss it. It's right off 95 if you're going to get off at the Jones exit. It's right there. And it's like right by the big cow.
Right next door to Cow Ranch store. And that's only shopping center right there. McDonald's and Mariana's. You can't miss it.
Right, right. Hours and your social.
The hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Saturday. You can find me on Yelp, search bar, type in Calling All Paws, pop right up. You can Google, pop right up.
Yeah, right. So, and you're very open for people coming, doing like I do, doing the reconnaissance, coming down and paying a visit before they bring their dog.
Yeah, I'll say, come pay a visit.
Yeah, take a look for yourself.
Bring your dog.
Yeah, bring your dog
field
too.
Trip.
Yeah, it's really worthwhile. And then you get a great opportunity to see how your dog's going to respond in that environment. So, well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing so much.
You.
Yeah, appreciate it. Calling All Paws again, right there off Jones and 95. And I'm going to be following you for a while because I'm just enthralled. That's another conversation because you got family involved in this thing. This is just a real neat, united effort. So, yeah, it's just a really good feeling inside your shop. So thank you for being on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Coming up, we're going to talk more about dogs and some things that we really, not just in terms of shaving your dogs, but some real health concerns. And I'll share my story, somewhat embarrassing, about dealing with your dogs when it comes to the heat. So stick around.
Crazy Terry here with your car care tip of the day. So it's not a bad idea every now and then to check your battery. If you don't know how to do it, have somebody check it for you. Just a visual inspection can tell you a lot about your battery. So as we can see here, this battery's got a hold down. It's nice and tight. The cables are on. They don't look bad. We've got a cover. We don't see any corrosion. Everything's kind of tight, looking good. A little bit of dirt, that's normal, but nothing's leaking. No real cause for alarm here. So that's a good sign. Doesn't mean it's good, but at least visually we know that it's intact. Okay, so we're looking at a battery here that shows signs of corrosion. We want to test that battery to make sure it's good. Usually when they're getting like this, there's going to be a problem, leaking some acid at the top. We ran the test and we find out it has 396 cold cranking amps, but the battery requires 650. So it's just not enough. The battery is going to go soon. Better to know now than later. Okay, so the benefits of checking the cable is because this cable's rotted out. What we'll find is this is the problem, not the battery. So it'll save you from buying a battery, still having the no start, only to find out that it's a cable. This type of corrosion is common in diesels. Okay, so we're getting ready to jump the car, but we have to have some battery cables. And we have to check those too before we hook them up to the battery. So here we have our standard set of battery cables. We just look them over, see if the ends are frayed, if everything's connected all right. Everything looks good here. Wouldn't hurt to check the rest of the cable just to make sure the dog didn't get it and chew it up. We have red and black. Red's positive, black's negative. You always want to hook the positive up first and then the negative. And I'll show you how that's done right now. Keep these off to the side so they're not touching each other. Hook up your positive. You can find that right here by the plus sign, the negative sign. Plus is positive, red. Make sure that's securely hooked up. Keeping these away from each other. Hook up your negative cable. Just got to fight it on there. Figure out a way to get it. Wiggle it a little bit so it ensures a good connection. Now you're transferring voltage. If I hit these two together, we're going to spark. Kind of want to avoid that. Won't kill you. Kind of fun. A lot of people think if they can turn the headlights on, the battery's fine. That's not always the case. It takes very little amperage to turn a light on, but it takes a lot of amperage to start the starter. I recommend checking the charging system every oil change. At Sun Valley Automotive, there's never a charge for that. This is Crazy Terry with your car care tip of the day.
And welcome back to Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese. Joining me now is Dr. Debbie White. She's a veterinarian with Lone Mountain Animal Clinic, right?
Lone Mountain Animal
That's
Hospital.
right, up there on the northwest end of town. Actually, both of my guests are in the northwest part of the valley. And she is, not only is she a media expert, she has her own radio show, and you can go on. She's got a blog and all that type of stuff. It's just really neat to research social media before you hire anybody to work with your dogs, whether it's a groomer or a vet or a walker or a pet sitter. Do your research first. Make sure that you're comfortable with that person and your dog, cat, or ferret is comfortable with that person. Or rabbits. I didn't know rabbits got groomed, so I've learned something today. So who did you bring with you today?
This is Boss. He's my little sidekick. He's Mr. Personality. He wants to kind of explore the table here a little bit, giving me a little dirty look.
No, right? No, you can let him go, because we've had like lizards who jump to, just don't let him jump to freedom, because that's the only thing. You know, I don't want him going off over the edge. So as I was asking Lamar in our first segment, how did you become involved with animals? What made you decide to become a veterinarian?
It was just all I ever wanted to do.
Really?
There was really never any other concept of a career.
Wow.
So for my first memory, feeding squirrels, that's, I just loved animals from the beginning and just always wanted to help them.
Wow.
So it's truly kind of where I always thought I was going to be.
Well, like I said, too, I'm very jealous of people who get to, that's their life, is spending time with animals. There's just something so unique about that. And I'm not quite as far as people who say they'd rather be with an animal than be with people. I think that there's a little disconnect there, but I do get it. Because when you're dealing with dogs, cats, or whatever you have, they're not going to look at you and say, when we were 8 years old, you got on my last one. 8 minutes ago, it might be, I would like that treat again that you gave me, but that's as far as it goes. The unconditional love is amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
well,
right.
and part of my job is treating, the pets, but I also enjoy that close interaction with my clients, because it's a family. And I think that, what we think about our pets is just as important as what they're thinking and what they're going through. So we really kind of treat the people and the pets.
Right. So summertime, let's talk about summertime tips. And I'm going to share my embarrassing story on the front end so we can get done with that one. I had my two Akitas. We were in the car. Air conditioner is blowing. I'm in the front seat. They're in the back. So I'm thinking everything's good. Air conditioner is blowing full blast. I'm calm. I'm cool in the front. All of a sudden, there's this panting. And there's this bumping around and everything. And everybody's getting amped in the back. And I'm thinking, well, do they have to go potty or something? No. Even though the air conditioner was at full blast, they were still hot in the back. And I thought, how many people don't realize that, or their dogs aren't as vocal as mine were in expressing, we need to go home right now. You might be cool up there, but I'm sitting in front of the vents too. They're in the back, and it's not as cool in the back of the car. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and the big difference is really dogs cool by a different mechanism than we do.
Right.
We sweat. It's an evaporative cooling. The only way they cool is by panting.
Right.
And panting is really inefficient in cooling, especially when you're in certain situations,
Right.
when they're really excited, when you're in a closed area where there's not a lot of air circulation, or there's the ambient temperature is really high. So
Right.
that's why they have so much more trouble than we might in that kind of situation.
Right. So that panting is really almost, I don't want to say a danger signal, but it is a warning. You need to get them to a cooler situation immediately.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think every summer, I see heat stroke, year round in Las Vegas.
Right.
We don't have to see it only in the 115 degree temperatures.
Right.
Really, anything over 80, 85 degrees, a pet
Really?
with the right situation can have a heat stroke event. We were talking about rabbits.
Right.
Rabbits are exquisitely sensitive to heat stroke.
Really?
So over 80 degrees, if they're housed outside and they don't have a burrow to go into, they can suffer heat stroke if you don't have a cooling mechanism for them.
Wow.
But breeds of dog. There's pugs, Shih Tzus, the squishy-faced breed
The
dogs.
bulldogs, yes.
They don't breathe well, on a given
Anyway,
day.
right.
So when you give them that extra stress of heat, they really have a hard time, and they can suffer heat stroke much faster.
What are the signs of heat stroke?
The first sign is excessive panting. A lot of dogs will look anxious. They may have a change in the color of their gums. They'll turn kind of bluish.
Wow.
Some will vomit. They may lose their coordination or even be unable to walk.
Wow. How crucial is it if they've let it get that far, maybe just don't know any better, that they get to a veterinarian? What can you do for them?
Well, the most important thing is, if you're at that point, you need to see a vet. This is not something you can home treat.
Right.
Doing so actually jeopardizes their chance of
Really?
survival.
Why?
Because there's a lot of other systemic problems that happen from high temperatures. It causes damage to the brain, to the digestive tract, to the kidneys, and if we don't get that pet on fluids and emergency care right away, we can't reverse those changes.
Wow.
You might bring their temperature down quickly, but those things we have to have with a veterinary care.
Now, until you just said that, I just assumed that this was a problem like in the temperatures that we're experiencing now, over 100. I think, and especially because I am a desert rat, I grew up here, my tolerance for heat is quite high. So I assume that my dogs, because they were raised in desert environments, that their tolerance for heat is quite high, but I'm not walking around with a fur coat in the middle of the summertime either.
Absolutely. And there is some acclimating to an ambient temperature.
Right.
So we know that dogs that live in cold temperatures can get used to that, but there's extremes and there's those situations where they just can't cope.
Right.
One big fallacy I think a lot of people don't realize in Las Vegas is heat stroke can happen day or night.
Wow.
I've had cases, I had an English bulldog many years ago that had a heat stroke event at like 8 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And it was just hot, he had trouble breathing, and he was just hanging out in the shaded backyard. So
So the owners, of course, think they're doing everything right. There's probably water out there, there's shade out there, so they're thinking, what could possibly go wrong? But, and as you were saying that, think about this, especially in the heat of summer. I'm always amazed, and I say, God, how? It'll be midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's still 100 degrees outside, and there's no sign of the sun. It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
The other thing is a big concern, especially for people who are new, who moved here. How much hotter pavement is, and how much damage it does for a dog.
Oh, quite a bit. And, you know, we see every summer, I see tons of foot pad injuries. And they'll actually, you know, the foot pad is very protective, but it also will be injured by activity, heat. So dogs that go hiking, they can have, you know, sloughing of the foot pads just from that vigorous activity on rock, or pets that run around a pool decking around a pool, where they can actually have all their pads slough the surface of their skin. It's horribly painful.
Yeah.
So we have to treat them with pain medicine and bandaging and to nurse them through that.
Wow. Can it go beyond just the scabbing and the scarring? I mean, what are the long-term effects? Because I could imagine, especially my friends who have a pool, I've never questioned it until when you brought that up. If they're running around like that, I can see where an owner might think, well, this is fine for my dog.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not immediately apparent that that kind of injury happens. It's not until later, like the next day, that we start to see the peeling of that foot pad.
Just like when people sunburn, you don't see it right away, they might get red, but then when you see that skin being, you know, sloughed off, that's when you know that they were out in the sun too long.
Yeah, and I have to say, even just walking Boston, I had to pick them up coming through your parking lot, because, you know, black asphalt really retains that heat.
Yes.
And, you know, dogs will be sensitive with that. So at my office, we encourage folks to pick up your little pets if possible, to bring them into the office so that they can be comfortable.
I actually installed doggy turf in my backyard, and I thought I was doing such a great thing.
Oh, dear.
Yes. Fortunately, I've got enough trees back there. But the truth of the matter is that is also a potentially dangerous thing for dogs, especially if that doggy turf is exposed to direct sunlight for a large period of time. It doesn't cool down right away. It's just like asphalt. You know, it's hot.
Yeah, and that is one big misconception about AstroTurf. You really need a shaded area if that's where your pet is going to eliminate or walk during the heat of the day, because it'll burn their feet, or you have to have a hosing or misting system over that to cool them.
Right. What are some other things people should look out for?
Oh golly, the other big things I'd say, well, pool safety is always a big thing year round, but because we take our pets swimming, whether it's at the lake or in your own backyard pool, is not every dog knows how to swim.
Right.
So you have to kind of show them the mechanism and how to get in and out of the pool. Really important. And flotation devices, all those good things. I think the other big thing is there's so much fun during the summer. We have barbecues, we have parades. Dogs aren't meant to be doing some of these activities with us. Again, we enjoy it, but to take him to a 4th of July party where he's going to be out in the sun, or maybe out at a parade and he's going to be out in 105-degree heat all day, that may be too much for him, and it would be better for him to spend that time at home.
Right. And I've seen that, covering stories about dogs. It really was the light bulb for me, is that the family, like you're saying, they have all this activity. This is unusual for a dog, because especially if you've had an environment where it's quiet, or if you don't have kids who are running around, so this is not their norm. You need to really be aware of their mental health as well as their physical health.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so kind of gauge for your dog. One of the things that I did with mine is to really try to expose them as much as possible to loud noises, to other people, try to take them shopping. There are a lot of restaurants here in Las Vegas, and you can take your dog shopping at Lowe's and walk them through and let them know that this is fine. You know, this is something that's fine. And it just makes it easier on everybody, and they're happier pets. Exercise. Do you have people coming in who maybe over-exercise their dogs, or like the little fatties where they're obviously under-exercised?
Yeah, and I think that ties into the whole heat and what we can tolerate during the summer and what they may not. So, summertime activities, do it in the morning before the sun is up at its peak and it's super hot. If you have to walk them at night, still watch that temperature and make sure you have a way to cool them, give them water during the walk.
Right.
So that's really a big thing. And you mentioned also, shaving your dogs.
Right.
And that unintentionally, you expose them to the effects of the sun.
I
And
had no
pets,
idea.
they'll get sunburn.
I had no idea.
And that can lead to, solar dermatitis and even some types of skin cancer. So it is important to make sure you're kind of thoughtful of what sun exposure they're getting.
As Lamar was saying, he can tell the difference between dogs that are or animals that are indoor pets as opposed to the ones who do spend a lot of time outdoors. And if you're one of those people who does, and I'm one, I take them out a lot. I feel like I'm not complete if I don't have good panting in the backseat or drooling. Does everybody have the console that's like totally corroded for dog drool? Raise your hands. Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's something that I've also had to kind of keep in mind. I want them to be with me, but that might not be in their best interest. I have another friend who's just really disapproving of me. It's like, Rikki, they should not be in your car at all in the summertime. He's just like one of those, no. But I had to experience it this year for the first time myself, because they'd never done that before. But I don't know how long we've probably been riding around, but it was too long for them.
Right, and I think even just doing a small errand,
Right.
you have to pre-cool your car. These little guys go to daycare, and it is so hot. I have to let my car run for 10 minutes sometimes before it can get cool enough that I won't see that unhappy panting look in my mirror. So you really do have to kind of keep that in mind as well.
Can you talk a little bit about diet? I'm sure you're aware of this latest scare about grain-free diets. And I just find that for me, I don't even tell people anymore what I feed my dogs, because if you want to have like a very heated debate, even more so than over President Trump, you tell another dog owner what you're feeding your dog and it's not something they approve of, woo, baby. So what are things that people should look for, and do we need to be afraid of, like, whether it's grain-free or not grain-free, or how you're feeding your dog? It's kind of personal.
Yeah. And it is very controversial. I will, and I have to say, a lot of what we're seeing in the veterinary and the pet market is actually triggered by what we're doing and what humans are consuming right now. So grain-free is a very big thing for people that are gluten intolerant. Dogs don't have to, I should say, we should not necessarily eliminate grain from their diet, and the FDA report is actually one of those examples of that, where an idea can actually be problematic. And for the grain-free, the concern is that if it's not a balanced diet. So once you eliminate certain things, we eliminate amino acids that are very important for the heart and for eye function. And that's really part of what happened with the FDA warning. Not all grain-free foods are bad, and not all will cause this problem, but if it's not fully balanced, then it can have a risk.
I actually read the actual report, and as happens frequently in the media, it went from them saying that there is a possible, they didn't say a definite or direct, there's a possible link to grain-free will kill your dog by the time it actually got to the mass media. So pet parents of any kind, you really have to kind of do your research and be aware what was the original story. Then it grows. It's sort of like the old telephone game with the Dixie cups. It just takes on a life of its own. It's like, oh my God, my dog is going to die before this. No, you have to really look at your dog. When you're hanging out with your babies, what are the things that you look for? Because as a veterinarian, I'm sure you maybe just subconsciously check them out every day.
Oh gosh, yeah. They are so used to it. In fact, we did our dremeling. Lamar would be very happy. We dremeled the nails the other day, so they're nice and comfortable if he's on your lap. But yeah, so I always look and feel and smell. Veterinarians are weird about that, but are their ears clean? Do they smell good? Does his hair coat smell good as well? But any kind of lumps, bumps, anything that's outside of your dog's norm is a trigger, and it should really get you thinking about why is that happening.
Right, right. When should, especially something as simple as every year I become afraid when they go from being just rambunctious, bang, 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 and then all of a sudden everybody's like, you know, I think, oh my gosh, is this a problem? But now I recognize that for them, as it gets hotter, they simply don't have the energy. And then I think, well, look at us as people. When we get hot, we don't want to go running around. We don't want to do anything. It's sort of like, it tires you out.
Yeah, and so they're going to definitely be a little bit more inactive at times of the day. You know, he has a peak day of playing with his friends at school, and he's done for at the end of the day. So, you know, that's his norm. I kind of know that's what his summer is going to be like. And, you know, he enjoys going out at the water as well.
Wow.
He's not a fan of swimming, but I know that that's going to be a big day for him. He's alert, he's aware all day long, and it's just going to be a, you know, a full day for him.
What are the, as I asked Lamar, what are the questions people should ask when they're shopping for a new vet? Because that's like shopping for a doctor. You really have to have a rapport.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is asking about some of the philosophies.
Okay.
You know, for some people, you have a certain breed, you have Akitas. You know, what's your philosophy on spaying and neutering? What age is that appropriate? What kind of diets do you recommend? What vaccinations are important for a pet in my geographical area? And then I think the other things are, you know, what are you know, asking a veterinarian, what's your favorite thing? What do you like to work on? Yeah. You know, for me, I love all critters, dogs, cats, exotics, but, you know, everyone has kind of their passion and what they're drawn to. And, you know, if you have a common interest and you share that with your veterinarian, then, you know, they're going to be passionate about your pets, too.
Every veterinarian I've ever had, and the one I have now, I always ask if they're comfortable with big breeds, because I am aware of, I do have Akitas, and they have a bad rep. You know, so I'm always kind of going a little bit on the defensive, but I want to know that when they see Behemoth and Behemoth 2 coming in, is that going to be okay with you? Are you going to trust that me as a pet owner, that I've got it under control? But also, are you comfortable? I mean, I specifically go for people, it's like they've dealt with big breeds from Mastiffs all the way down, or Canyon Corso. I think the Corsos are probably the biggest of that type of breed, or the Wolfhounds are huge, and Danes can be huge too. But are you going to be comfortable for all sizes? Because a lot of people have like one big dog and like maybe a little bitty dog too, so they've got the range that they're living with. It's normal for them. It may not be normal for that vet or that vet's staff.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it is, you know, informing the veterinarian and letting them know, you know, hey, if you're not familiar with a Bouvier, you know, they can be a bit protective. So just, you know, don't look her right in the eye and don't approach her from the front. And that just kind of helps us tune into what your particular pet is all about. But, you know, fortunately, you know, veterinarians know animals. That's what we do. So, you know, we're well schooled in the behavior.
Give me one of your favorite stories about dealing with a dog that might be just I'm sure you have tons.
This has nothing to do with summer, but years and years ago, I did a house call for a Labrador that was stuck in the doggy door.
Okay.
It was quite overweight and actually stuck in the...
It's not funny, I'm sorry.
In the doggy door. So they had the doggy out of the door, but the door was still attached to the dog. It was no longer attached to the house.
Right, so the dog's walking around with the door on it?
With the frame of the door. So I had to go out and induce anesthesia so that the door could be removed from the dog. And the lesson was the doggy had gotten too fat to get through the door. So weight loss was prescribed.
Do you see that often? Because I've got most of my friends, their dogs are very active. But, excuse me, but in visiting certain facilities, you can see where the dogs are fat. I mean, how dangerous is that? You know, the overfeeding and you think you're doing a good thing, especially if you've got a dog. My dogs self-regulate, but some dogs will just eat till it's gone.
Absolutely. I had Labradors, and I believe they would eat until they fell asleep.
Right.
So yeah, obesity causes same host of problems we see in people.
Right.
So we know it's linked towards heart disease, skin disease, orthopedic injuries. So having an overweight pet is more than just just being cute or funny. It actually does shorten their life, and it will set you up for more costly veterinary visits throughout their lifetime.
Right. What is this thing that I'm seeing and hearing right now with cancer? I just don't remember when I was a kid. Maybe it was happening and we just didn't call it that, but it just seems to me know so many people whose dogs have cancer and who are taking more meds than their owners are.
Yeah. Well, I would like to believe that a lot of that is because pets are living longer than
That's
they
true,
used to.
too.
We have better nutrition, better preventative care, and pets aren't running amok, or, where they're getting hit by cars and having horrible tragedies outside of the home.
Right.
So they are living longer, and we're starting to see that yes, they do develop certain cancers. Some are genetic linked, others environmental, other factors that we may not fully understand yet at this point.
Right. Do you have a lot of people who come in and they have a specific breed? And I like to say that in my experience, there are two types of dog people. There are people who love all dogs. It doesn't even matter. And then there are people like me who are breed specific. I was at a shop last night buying dog food, and the guy behind me had a Mastiff. Well, actually, I could see he had the little training contract. I said, so what do you have? And he has the Mastiff. I said, oh, how many do you have? He goes, I'm on my fourth. I said, well, I'm on my third and fourth Akita. So we were like exchanging. So I said, why do you like this particular breed? And then you got the people who just love whatever dog that is. Does that play a part too for you guys? I mean, you have to know all of the breeds and what their possibilities are. I know some people say a dog is a dog, but depending on what your dog is bred for, that's something else. You talked about the bulldogs, the short-nosed dogs. They've got they were bred for a certain thing, but they also have certain health conditions that are connected to what they were bred for, how they're built.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of attraction once you find a breed and it really clicks with you. You enjoy the same activities that the dog does. Right. There's certain kind of personality traits that you kind of get into them. I'd say the purpose-bred dogs. It's one of the things that's so interesting to me. To have a dog that's bred for carting,
right,
or that's a protection dog. They have a reason that they've developed over the years, and it's a really kind of noble thing to see an animal working with people.
Right.
And that's really what domestication is all about.
Really quickly, because we're running out of time here, pet insurance. I got pet insurance when Sean and I had an unfortunate encounter with two pit bulls, and it was like a $3,000 vet bill, and I just flipped out my credit card. It's like, okay, just wrap them up. And then I got pet insurance. I think that, in my experience, it might depend on what you're doing with your dog. If you're like me, you're taking your dog out in public places or out in the wilderness, but is it important also for people whose dogs stay at home?
I think so, yeah. And I see pet insurance as a way to help pay for those things that can be outside of maybe the normal reach that you could afford at a particular time. So if there's an accident or an injury, it may mean the difference between you putting that pet to sleep or pursuing treatment. The other cool thing about pet insurance is it can be used anywhere.
Right.
You can go to a specialty veterinary hospital and have cancer treated just as well as you can go to your veterinarian for a laceration repair.
Right.
So it really has that adaptability. It comes with a price.
Sure.
And there's
we have, as humans, we have human insurance, so we can cover those bills, so you're not stuck paying out of pocket for your root canal.
Yeah.
So it works for pets too.
Yeah.
I simply had never even thought about it until, like I said, I got that big bill and was like, woo, that's not that it hasn't happened since, but just in the off chance that it could.
Right.
Yeah.
It takes the pain away from those big bills. It doesn't mean you don't pay anything, but it definitely makes it more affordable.
In the summertime, about 2 vets back, I was experiencing this sort of like apprehension because where I was running my dog at the time had a lot of rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
Are there specific, besides rattlesnakes, some specific potential dangers here in our desert environment?
Well, cactuses. Certainly, if dogs are nearby playing with cactuses or playing around cactuses, they can fall into them, run into them, pursuing a ball.
Right.
I had a former dog that had a cactus stuck to his face. That was just unintended. He just turned around and hit it. Right. Scorpions we have in Las Vegas, and they can be in your home as well as outdoors. So that's definitely a hazard. But I think rattlesnakes are a really important thing to be aware of.
Right.
If you're active, like I am with Boss, there are avoidance training classes that you can take that can really make a huge difference in protecting them from ever getting around the snake in the first place.
Right, and they come in cycles. My friend at the time was letting us run on her property. What alarmed me was that she said, oh, just really nonchalantly, yeah, I pulled 6 rattlesnakes off. I just pulled one off this morning. I was like, oh, well, maybe we're not going to run up here for this summer because we've never had that issue before, and I had never even thought about it, Just a lot of things that we take for granted here in the desert that just nobody else in any other part of the country has to deal with.
Absolutely. They just kind of, my friends that when I practiced talk to friends at practice elsewhere, they're like, really? Oh my gosh, you deal with that? Of course, we don't have the fleas to
Right,
bother
exactly,
with,
or
though.
the ticks either. Yeah, that's my big concern. It's like, would I find the tick in time? It's like, well, I'd have to like rub every single part of them to even try to find it, and then have to pull it out. If you've ever had to pull a tick out, it's disgusting. So yeah, well, thank you for being on. Thank you for joining us on
My
my
pleasure.
show. And your social, how can people get in touch with you, and how can they hear your radio show?
Well, I practice at Lone Mountain Animal Hospital, and we're on Cheyenne and Rainbow. Phone number 702-645-3116. I'm on Animal Radio. We aren't, unfortunately, on a local station, but we're on AM/FM radio across the country, and you can reach us and watch our, listen to our podcast.
Right.
On,
And folks can also write to you and you know, like, or email you and find out if they've got a specific question.
Yeah.
And then also, as Lamar Jackson and I were speaking of, I do reconnaissance always, especially if I'm going into a new environment with my dogs. I want to go in ahead of time to see, am I comfortable, and are they going to be comfortable there? So you would welcome somebody to come in and just kind of take a look around.
Yeah, I mean, I get interviewed
Yeah,
by
right.
clients and prospective clients. If you're new to an area, that's how you have to have that face-to-face contact. You know, internet's great, but
Right.
you learn a lot by just kind of having a face-to-face conversation. So
Right.
I think that's an important part.
You've
of
got to have a
finding that.
feel. You've got to have a feel. Thank you very much, Dr. Debbie White from Lone Mountain Animal Hospital up here on Cheyenne and Rainbow. And we've got Lamar Jackson. He's at US 95 and Jones if you want to get your dog groomed and really hang out with people. I really stress you've got to be comfortable with the person who's dealing basically with your baby. You know, that's
Absolutely.
it. And because that also translates, I read a great book by, I think it's Patricia McConnell, The Other End of the Leash, and she talks about how, and I never thought about that until I read the book, how you feel as the pet parent, as the owner, is going to be translated to your dog. So if you're afraid of the vet or you're afraid of the groomer, your dog's going to be anxious too. They're going to think, oh, do I have to protect? You know, it's like, is there some issue here? So it's nice to kind of get yourself at ease on the front end.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us for this edition of Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese. Keep in mind, folks, you know, in this heat, all kinds of things can go wrong really, really quickly. So make sure you have water, make sure you're not listen to your animals. Look at your animals. All shade is not created equal, and you might think that they're cool in the outdoors, and maybe they're not. So it's just kind of just being aware of the ones that you love, who love us back unconditionally. That's fabulous. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll see you next week for another edition of Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese.